Every day.
It'll work as long as somebody's getting in there. So now it's live.
Hi, Chris.
Hello.
How you doing?
to return from closed session to open session.
So moved. Second.
Voice vote, all those for, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed. I'll go back into everything. At this time, we're going to have a request for public hearing. If anybody would like to address the Board of Education at this time, please step forward to the podium. Looks like we have Julia Smith.
Okay, you guys are becoming quite familiar with me. I obviously am still Julia Smith. The board members all received an email from me about a week and a half ago. There seems to be a lot of confusion about whether or not college classes, dual credit classes, are to be weighted starting next year. When the planning guides were distributed to the students, they were handed out, and kind of as a side note, the guidance counselor mentioned, by the way, it was decided that dual credit classes are no longer to be weighted. For most kids, my daughter's a planner since 8th grade when she had her first, here's your high school planning guide. She has laid out exactly what her plan was to get from point A to point B, where she wants to finish. There has been, I've been at the meetings for months, there has been no speak amongst the entire board about eliminating weighted classes, or eliminating the weighting on those dual credit classes. When my daughter came and spoke to me, I reached out to a board member the following day who I just happened to see, and they voiced confusion that it hadn't been discussed, that it had not been voted on, it had not been approved. I spoke to the guidance counselor, Ms. Neve, who told me yes, she had been told that it had been voted on at the November board meeting, and that she, when approached about it previously, it was her recommendation to continue weighting them, not to eliminate the weighting of those dual credit classes. She stated that it was Mr. McMillan and Dr. Chatterton's recommendation to her that they no longer be weighted. No specific reasons were given after I spoke to her. Essentially, if you were to eliminate the weighting of the college classes, you're asking kids to choose top 10 or take college classes. I can take physical science or I can take a college class. There is no logic, rhyme, or reason to doing that. Who benefits from it? I mean, are we dumbing our kids down just because there's for whatever reason, somebody decided we're not going to weight these anymore? As a parent of a child who just graduated, top 10 this past May, this class had 4 principals, 4 guidance counselors in 4 years. So now to say the following fall, oh, we're going to make this huge change. I already feel that he was top 10, the education that he got is not what it could have been. Farmington, there's constantly a curriculum committee. We need to help those kids strive for more. When you're eliminating a benefit of going for more, kids need that motivator. Like I said, he's going to college. He got a full ride to Bradley. His SAT score was second in his class, and it was only 1260. He's got kids in his class that, 100 points or more higher than him, and they weren't even in the top 25% SAT score-wise in their class. He is struggling with some classes that there's no reason he should be struggling. I said, are we encouraging kids not to do as much? We're adding more of these college dual credit classes that we're going to offer, But if the benefit is eliminated, are they gonna take them? Or here in a couple years, are we gonna say, kids aren't signing up for them anymore, let's eliminate them? Definitely feel like more discussion needs to be had about it, and like I said, we need to look at who's gonna benefit from eliminating the weighted grades and who's going to suffer with that, so. there's-
Thank you. Moving on to presentations. Is there anybody else who'd like to address the board? Seeing none, moving on to presentations. Unfortunately, Travis wasn't able to make it tonight, so we'll go on to action items. Resolution of the 2019 tax levy. I'll need a motion and a second to approve the resolution 120919 for the 2019 tax levy.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Roll call.
I have a question.
Oh.
Looking through the open session documents from last month,
Yeah.
it said, I just need an explanation, I guess. It says, for 2018 to 2019 is a 3.23% increase from the previous year. How's that figured? Did you say before, or what's the increase?
On EAV? Oh, because you balloon those tax capped, those 6 that are capped, you still balloon it beyond 2% to make sure you capture all those dollars in case the EAV was off. But what will actually yield is the 1.36.
Okay, so this is basically just saying the tax base increased, not necessarily, it's not clear.
Not the tax rate of the, right.
Okay. That's my question.
And so, some taxing bodies that are limited in that, they balloon it by 10%, 5%. It's never gonna be off that much. I mean, we try to get it as close as we can to the factual, just to make sure that we capture it all, just in case there's a slight increase. I will comment that the state's looking to go to PTEL. Some counties are tax capped, where they're all capped, and you only get, a certain percentage based on the EAV increases, what's new brought on. And we'll see if that comes to fruition or not. Right now, the 3 counties that we work with are not within the PTEL, but like Tazewell County across, and Sangamon County, just some districts. So I would see more districts going to a unified format.
Any other questions? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Slack?
Yes.
Stanley?
Yes.
Brewer? Yes. Trolley? Yes. Marr?
Yes.
Oldfield?
Yes. Transportation fleet, Mr. Ross can come up here and answer any questions you might have, but Mr. Ross has secured pricing and vehicles for the approval this evening, because the nature of this, these two transactions, we're going to ask that they be split into 2 separate actions by the board. I guess, Mr. Ross, you can explain to us what both of them are.
Same thing, you kind of went down just like we talked about last month, the purchase of vans, because that would come from the special ed fund to transfer. And I prices of the vans in there and what those would be. That allows us to get rid of 2 buses at this time, for sure. And then we would rotate out 3 buses, so we're getting rid of 5 to get 3 new ones in. So the finance price is somewhere around $78,000, and I was able to get a cheaper interest rate than I anticipated as well. So,
It was local, right?
what's that?
The financing was local?
Yes, yep, the cheapest one was.
Good.
worked out good for everybody.
And this is the same stuff we talked about last month with the purchase of the.
Went through the bid
Yeah,
process
the bid
and
process.
all of that as well, so. Now, the vans were the state bid, so we didn't do that, yeah, but the buses were on bid.
That's why it's two separate actions. I just
Yeah.
wanted to be a little bit more clear on the process for which we allocated the two bids.
I'll need a motion and a second to approve the transportation vehicle vendor quotes as presented. Moved. I'll second that. Any questions or discussions?
Right thing to do?
I think it is, financially for sure.
I will say that Mr. Valls, I'm very impressed with how hard he works on getting us as good a price as he can get, or anybody can get, yeah.
I like this.
As they say, he is tight. So I appreciate everything you do.
Like,
Any other comments or discussions? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Stanley?
Yes.
Brewer? Yes. Farley? Yes. Marr?
Yes.
Oldfield?
Yes.
Slack?
Yes.
And then I'll need a motion and a second to accept the bus bid acquisition as presented.
So move.
I'll second that also.
Who made the motion, please?
Travis. Any discussion on this one? This is the type C buses.
Trading off 5, do the 3
Yeah. Seeing no further discussion, roll call vote, please.
Brewer? Yes. Farley? Yes. Marr?
Yes.
Oldfield?
Yes.
Slack?
Yes.
Stanley?
Yes.
And enhancement projects, everybody has in their packet, Midwest Construction Professionals, MCP, worked with 3 vendors on the construction of the 20 by 24 by 10 baseball storage shed. Wagenbach is the recommendation for your approval. While the final details are not perfectly finalized, we would like to get this project secured and underway. So I'll need a motion and a second to accept Wagenbach Builders for the construction of the storage shed by the baseball fields, not to exceed $24,731.
And then the concrete for that, in case there'll be something separate done.
Yeah, it'd be
Have the
separate.
motion for discussion. Right.
Technically, so moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
The concrete for that, in case there'll be something separate done.
Yes, sir.
Yes, we're already
So this
confirmed.
brings all together here.
The baseball batting cage is already secured. That deal's
Yeah.
done with Foos along with
Oh, the
their-
parking spot for
with the party spot for
Okay.
the band trailer, and then some of the other little
The
approach
roads.
stuff around the
Okay.
maintenance building. This is the actual building, and it's all tied together in one bid.
Yeah, so that shouldn't be
We just wanted a price reference, so that's why we asked.
And that's is that a totally finished building, electrical? There's
No,
electrical?
we're not putting any electrical in
Just
it.
to open the door, put something in?
Yes. We're open to tie onto the light pole there just for an outlet to be able to plug in, like if we have a pitching machine for that.
Yes, yes, sure. And it's a little metal building with a metal roof?
Yeah,
Shingle roof?
and no, it's metal, it's all metal. We had to work around with, I don't know, it's a moisture barrier roof that caused a little bit on the pricing, and then the actual service door, I requested the heavier hinge. I just see when the side ones are up, the wind catching it, and I've seen enough hinges on that. So if you look at the actual bid, it's to be signed tonight, it's a little less at the 24,400, but I put in not to exceed the 731 just to make sure that we get the right hinges and everything.
This will be located at far
In
out?
between the 2 ball fields, right down where the old little shed was, right past the like third base line for the varsity field, first base line, far enough down that it'll be at the northmost end of the batting cage, and the batting cage will be far enough down to where It will not be down by where any spectators would be or the dugouts. So theoretically, some kids could be down there batting and warming up while the game is going on. You wouldn't have any
Batting cage east, west, north, or south?
north-south.
North, south.
So what you said with the roof and the hinges, that's the difference between the 20,000 and 24,000.
I think the bottom of the actual bid from Security and Wagon box is,
Or is that a different?
that was before we had the 2 garage doors. I don't.
There's a description on the side, 25, 24, and 10.
Correct. That's without the 24,731 wagon box. Is what you're approving. But when we changed a few things around as far as the garage doors and things like that, that's what brought the price down that you're quoting on. I just figured that's the highest, most dollar point that we would ever spend on it. So that's why the motion is not to exceed that highest threshold.
This is coming out of
The enhancement project,
Okay.
Fund 61.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, need a roll call vote, please.
Farrelly? Yes. Mar?
Yes.
Oldfield?
Yes.
Slack? Stanley?
Yes.
Brewer? Yes.
Risk management plan. The district maintains a risk management plan which is designed to reduce tort expenditures. With the assistance of the district's attorney firm, we have been able to do a job description analysis and establish a portion of our work that reduces the district's risk to liability. The superintendent, principals, assistant principal, and director of maintenance have been a part of the plan. We are adding the school nurse and director of technology to this plan. Need a motion and a second to accept the risk management plan as presented.
So moved.
Second.
And this then lets salary come out of toward?
That, the stripes are moves from the education fund.
Any other questions or discussions? Seeing none, roll call please.
Mar?
Yes.
Oldfield?
Yes.
Slack?
Yes.
Stanley?
Yes.
Brewer? Yes. Farrelly? Yes.
Solar array, the financial group who we are leasing the solar array are needing to extend the initial length of the lease from 15 years with an optional extension of 2 5-year extensions. The new agreement is binding us to the first extension, which would take the lease to a 20-year agreement. I'll need a motion and a second to accept the solar array leasing agreement as presented. So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? We have
Mr. Smith?
Mr. Smith here, if anybody has any questions directly for him.
Do we have an agreement now in place?
Yes.
15.
This would be an amendment to that.
An amendment to it.
In place.
Yeah.
But this would take away the option of that second 5-year, correct?
Technically, yes. And Zach called me this morning and I was about 80 miles away from here, so I come back this afternoon and try to educate myself to this because I don't normally deal with it, but I think I've got a relatively grasp of what happens is the IPA, the Illinois Power Authority, who really is controlling all of the solar projects that we're dealing with, their initial term talked about 20 years and nothing else. So when we were dealing with, and you're not the only school district, we were having to talk to 32 other projects about the same thing at this point in time. We tried to talk about 15 years and 2 to 5 years. The IPA, to go back to the initial contract in the IPA, or they're not really a contract, but their designations, they specifically talked about 20 years for the initial contract. we tried to be as user-friendly as we could. Well, now that user-friendly is caught up with us, they're asking us to go back to the initial proposal of the IPA, who controls the SRECs, make the initial contract 20 years. Nothing changes, because you'll still be able to make a buyout at 15 years at the value price at the end of 15 years, which, quite frankly, is not going to be very much. But they want a 20-year initial contract, and that has to do, and I'm pulling at straws here to understand why, but that's the way, when they started taxing all of us in this room to pay a utility, to pay for these SRECs, or solar renewable energy credits, it's exactly the same thing they did when they bailed out ComEd's new plants. It was their contract is 20 years that they're going to be able to tax for it. That's what the IPA also says for the solar renewable energy credits. All we're asking for is an amendment that goes from 15 years to 20 years. If you don't agree to do anything, right now, if you didn't do anything at 15 years, everything's gone. It just becomes a moot point. We come and get the contract, or what's left, and take it away. All we're saying now is we'd like that first 5 years to go into a 20 years. So instead of 15 years, it's 20 years with the ability for an additional 5 years. Or you can buy it out at 20 years, or we'll come and get it at 20 years. Quite frankly, when I look back at what the value of the solar project is at 20 years, we could probably straighten enough money together in our pockets to buy it in 20 years. Just because that's the way appreciation works on borrowing or financing money. That's how it works from our financial partners. Our financial partners, which are Dyna Solar, and then Primergy Solar is a large investment firm out of Australia. They're financing every project we're doing with SRECs. They make their money back over the fact that you can't take advantage of the accelerated depreciation, you can't take advantage of the SRECs, and all of the things that not-for-profit can't take advantage of. They can. They have groups of huge investment firms that have a tax appetite. So in the end result, that's what we're asking for, is an amendment that says that first period goes from 15 years to 20 years. That they still have the ability to buy it out starting at year 15, or at the end of year 15.
And you're saying the buyout at year 15 would be a low amount of money? Very cheap.
Well, yes, I can say that, but if you've ever looked at depreciation, who knows what it's going to be 5 years from now. It might, realistically, if things go as we plan, that's probably going to have almost no value for 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
But you're still going to have the guarantee on the solar plant itself. All those panels are guaranteed for 25 years to be at least 80% efficient. At 25 years is the day we turn them on.
The IPA, is this a
Illinois
government,
Power
is it
Authority.
a government authority, or?
Yes. Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
It's part of the Illinois Commerce Commission that was set up specifically to deal with wind power PPAs, solar power PPAs.
So they're asking, or are they telling you to go to these 20 things?
Okay, but we have a contract here already. We're trying to get ours to coincide with what they're telling us.
So what's the benefit to us to change this?
Pardon?
What's the benefit to us to change this?
We will have no control over what they could come back and just say, you will do this.
Well, that's a little harder to do.
Pardon?
That's a little harder to do.
Well,
it could be done, obviously, it's a government, but.
I don't disagree with you,
Yeah.
but I'm also a taxpayer in the state of Illinois, and I've watched our
I said 11 Well, let them come back and try to do it to us then. Why are we gonna give another 5 years?
Well, there's no benefit to us to do
There's
that.
no disadvantage.
There's no downside though. What's the,
What's the downside?
We already agreed to it. We have an agreement in place. We're done. We just argued about other things like this, you
Yeah.
know,
And they're coming to us and saying, hey, we would appreciate if we could do this. I mean, it's not costing us anything, it's not, I mean, it's wasting, I mean, not to say, I don't say it's wasting our
What
time.
if 10 years from now, what if 15 years from now, there's better deal out of it, we're stuck in 5 years?
I'm sorry.
We can still buy out at 15.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm not saying buy it, I'm saying another company comes in and offers a better deal.
In 15 years?
That land stuff there.
In 15 years,
Yes.
we tell them to get out. I mean, we buy it out and we do something else.
Yeah, but in the other deal, we wouldn't have to buy it out, we can come and take it. We don't.
Well, they would-
Cost us nothing.
They would still.
You don't have to buy it out of it.
But if we give you another 20 years.
No, another 5.
20 years total, we're stuck with it for 20 years, so. Unless you guys decide it's not making money.
By the way it's worded, yes, you would be obligated to that 20-year contract. That 5 years is the only thing that changes, because from 20 to 15 to 12.
So I'm confused maybe now. So at year 15, with the amendment, we have an out or we don't?
Oh, you do have it.
We would have an out still.
To buy it out, yes.
In the original agreement, at year 15,
You buy it out, or we come and get it, or you have the option to extend it for 5 years. The only thing that changes is you don't have that additional 5-year option. It comes automatically.
so basically what we're forfeiting is the chance for you to come get it without free and clear it at 15
Correct.
instead of 20. We could still buy it out,
Correct.
it's just we can't be done with it.
it's the removal feature of it.
right.
So we would remove it at 15 or remove it at 20. I'm sorry, Steve or the company would remove it at 15 or remove it at 20.
And let's be realistic, that's if the company's still in business and everything's went the way it's supposed to, it still is a company.
There's a lot of ifs.
A lot of ifs there, that's right.
Yeah.
Even at
You know,
15 or 20.
And one of those is, if the investment firm is doing what we expect them to do, the panel, in all seriousness, the panel is probably going to be replaced before 15 years even gets here at their cost.
Mhm. Now, why do you say that?
Well, why do I say that?
Yeah.
The investment firm gets paid on how much power produces out of that.
So you're saying they will upgrade the panels?
They would upgrade panels. If you look at the history of solar, and I can give you the prime example in Cuba, Illinois, they have a 30 kW one that's fully built, which was almost 13 years come May, I think it is. Those panels, efficiency rating were 9% when they were installed. Today, they're probably about 6. I've already showed them on paper, they could replace those panels that they paid for right now, and they pay for themselves in 3 years, just by the increase in efficiency. And if you put yourself in the investor's position, these panels are going to be between 19 and 21% efficient. At 15 years, I can't really speculate on what it could be. The panels that we use in the space shuttle right now are 40% efficient. So the investment firm is getting it on a 19 or 20% efficiency rating today. If new panels become less costly, more efficient, it's going to be in their best interest to replace them when that break-even point hits, which could be 6 or 7 years, it could be 10 or 12 years. I can't imagine that. I don't think anybody else out there can right now either. But it's going to be the investment firm's position. We're going to generate as much electricity as we can off of this lease agreement. It not only makes you more money, but it makes them more money.
What is the progress on building this thing?
Pardon?
The progress on building this thing, how's that going?
all the poles are driven. And it's the next process. I haven't been out there exactly. Have they even delivered the racking now? Are there some
The
big
crossbar
pallets?
that goes on the post?
Yes, the ground poles are, yes.
Yep, they're out there today.
Okay, so
And
that-
Wilcox has got the line running out to it and then hooked up to
so you'll see a crew back in here week and a half probably, putting what's called the racking up, which is the racking from pole to pole that supports the panels. Once those are up and we're looking at probably 2.5 to 3 weeks if we have a period where we don't get interrupted in the panels we put on. It's our goal, we have to have everything in here and completed by around the 1st of May. Our absolute drop dead date for you and every other school is to have that system energized before your meter read date in either late May or early June. Because what happens then, we want it up and running before you start setting demands for some months. Is that?
Yeah, it just seemed like we're quite a bit behind. I mean, we've had several targets and.
Well, it is. If you would have been here when we were putting it on the roof, at 756 kW on your roof, we never started till the 12th of November on the roof, and we missed 5 days. And that turned it actually on the 15th or 16th of April of 2015. So it behooves us to get it up and running as quickly as possible. And I can tell you that you, Galesburg, and Granite City are the 3 primary schools that we're focused on right now. Almost every project's got the ground mounts in, but those are the ones we're really focused on. You create the biggest demand of any of the systems we have. Less demand you create, the more you're going to like that solar. There's a couple of add-ons. Just your current PPA rate's 4 cents. I think your contract rate, help me here, I can't remember, it's 5 point something?
Not, yeah, yes.
Yeah. So it behooves everybody for us to get that up as quickly as possible. Now, the other thing you need to think about, and I'm just putting this out there for education, Ameren, it hasn't been publicly put out yet, but it will be in January. Ameren is being hit by the federal government to reduce what's called their transportation charge. I think currently it's about 9 cents. So I think 6. Don't quote me on any of these numbers because we're just getting grasp on it. The other thing we're doing is, I don't know when your contract is up. Do you have a Constellation now, or is it some other?
Guard?
Ever who it is, we're working with 3 major electric suppliers right now to try to reach a contract with them that will get it as close to what you're paying for solar for any excess you have. You're going to have very little excess. If my calculations are right, you're probably going to be completely off the grid 30 to 35 days a year, where you're producing more power back into the system than what you normally would take in, which creates a credit for your next month's bill. Or it could go as much as 4 or 5 months before you use it all back again. I mean, and honestly, I don't like this any more than anybody else does because it's just confusing things. The bottom line number is not going to change. Other than that that 5 years is part of the commitment. You have a way to get out of it at 15 still.
Why it cost us more?
Pardon?
The way it cost us money.
A little bit. But it won't because you're still going to make it. And then you're going to get this raw number as opposed to what our PPA rate is on a buyout.
second 5 years is a mutual deal, right?
Your call.
Yeah, yes, the 20 to 25.
The
The
second
20 to
5 years,
25.
completely your call.
Like,
You can tell us to take it off, leave it there, or we want to buy it out.
Because it sounds like, I mean, it's always a vote for the board, but it sounds like to me that, that Illinois is going to eventually could make us go to 15, or go to 20 years.
Could.
So, I mean, it's, either you do it now or we do it later, and, well, I mean, that's all to your decision. So any other discussion on it? We'll just go to a vote. We need a roll call vote, please.
Oldfield,
Yes.
Slack,
no.
Stanley,
No.
Brewer,
Yes.
Frawley. Yes. Marr,
No.
So since Chad's not here, it dies for a black majority. So maybe we'll see you sometime soon if they make it. So,
I'm sure you will.
yes, sir. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you coming.
Thanks a lot.
Discussion items. Letter H, Code of Ethics. I will strive to keep my board focused on its primary work of clarifying the directive purpose, direction, and goals, and monitoring the district's performance. Number 2, committee reports. Curriculum Committee, looks like you guys met on November 14th.
Yeah, we did. And we learned the elementary's getting their survey ready, and the junior high, I'm just gonna hit some highlights because this will take forever. Quite honestly. And if you can read it. And the junior high is looking into how to get more students eligible to take Algebra 1 in 8th grade. They're also, we're gonna look into discovery education is being explored for the junior high at the 8th grade level. And I think that's for social studies. And then we discussed that the high school would like to see physical science taught in the 8th grade. And then we discussed test results. And that's pretty much what we did.
I just had one question, Katie. Unfortunately, I wasn't there. What is Discovery Education? That's a program that does?
It kind of uses the computer to teach it, and they, like, it opens up all kinds of doors. It's on the computer, and they use it, and like you can click and post, see videos and things to go with stuff. Mr. Upmore can tell us more, but it sounds really cool.
I saw it mentioned a couple times, and it seemed really interesting.
It sounds fantastic.
So one of the things that we're looking at in the junior high, since we're moving to a one-to-one initiative next year, is textbooks for certain subjects. Our social studies curriculum and our science curriculum, a little outdated, and with the new computers we have next year. So what we're doing is we're trying out a couple of programs. The Discovery Education is the first one that we've tried out. We used a 30-day trial. We're on our second 30 days of that. We're using that in our 8th grade social studies and our 8th grade science classes. Those teachers are giving it a little bit of a trial run to see what they think of it, but it's all interactive learning. The kids don't carry around a paper textbook anymore. The textbook is on the computer. There's interactive maps, there's labs, they can highlight notes, they can take notes. Some of the assessments are online. It's all compacted into one program. So we're just kind of give it a shot and see if we like it.
Sounds good.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Negotiations hasn't had to meet, and delegate is not here, and we'll hear from him next month.
Did he go to the sessions?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good,
Yeah,
good,
yeah.
good.
Labor management.
Basically, it was a little bit of a longer one. There was, basically, Mr. Vallis talked about the LHI and kind of the updates on that, the parental input portion of it. We were talking about cameras in the gym in the high school. There are currently cameras in the junior high, but some of the staff felt that they would light cameras in the high school gym.
That would
For the purposes of, basically, I think disciplinary
Oh, okay.
mostly, as
Okay.
far as there being proof of what actually
Well,
went
sure,
down
no, I
rather
thought
than it being
disciplinary or something
one
else.
against the
Disciplinary,
other.
okay.
It was actually staff that feels like they'd like
And that
that
was the big
backup.
thing, it was staff.
The class, they talked about class sizes for the 4th and 5th grade.
It's one of those does have a big class.
It's the current 4th grade right now. They've had a few
Yeah,
more
24.
enrolled. They have a student facilitator that at the time bounces between each class where they're needed. We are looking for another teacher next year in the 5th grade to decrease that class size, but there wasn't a good candidate this year, so that was how it was handled this year. Safety plan was talked about, concerns with the safety plan. There were some custodian concerns in the elementary of maybe things that just might have gotten overlooked in shift changes and stuff, and when there's substitutes. Clarification on when the doors open in the morning and why some bus kids come in some of the bus kids are brought in at 7:30 versus 7:45. Some classroom purchases and what the process is for getting approved. I think that pretty well fits most of it. Concert, and there were some elementary concerns about what time teachers needed to be there, if they had to be there for concerts.
This is probably everything else to add.
That's pretty much it.
Wonderful. Building and grounds, we haven't met in a little while, but there is a update on the elementary playground memo and fencing.
Oh, I didn't have that.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
Yeah, we'll just talk
That's
about
that.
it.
Yeah, we had some discussion about
And
it
we'll
too.
start this pack, this is the same thing, it's just coming from both ends to get there quicker. So since we talked about the playground, at the last board meeting, I, met with the FCES PTO, and they are excited to hear that the conversations are happening at this level right now. They would like to, commit to the surfacing, the wood fiber surfacing, regardless of which option we choose. They were too hip on the 94,000. Who would have thought?
Actually, it was kind of, we're not gonna discuss it this month, but next month, when I went to the convention up there in Chicago, that was one of my main goals, was to look at,
Right.
other options, and there are a few other options that I would like somebody to look into,
Okay.
that's got a little more knowledge about the legal aspirations of the different, surfaces, and they sound considerably cheaper than the 94,000. And they look a little bit better than the wood chips.
Okay.
So maybe it's an option, maybe it's not.
Okay.
It was some of this research I was doing up there when I was,
Do you want to email me?
I would love to. I'll actually give Dr. Chatterton some of the brochures and the
Okay.
business cards I got, and then,
Sounds good.
yeah. But I apologize, go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
go right ahead. That was actually perfect. But anyway, they, based on the two quotes that we had, we have two different options of playgrounds that we were looking at. And so that's what they would like to commit to. And then the balance of what they had already set aside for our playground project at the elementary, then they would like to commit to, the existing playground for updates, because as we talked about, we're about to meet that life expectancy of that equipment. It takes a lot of wear and tear and weather and whatnot. So I have another quote coming then from Brian Mead to separate that out for PTO and then for us to look at the other numbers. Another option also that I talked to Brian about was, and PTO was also interested in helping us to man this, but if we were to get 15 to 20 adult volunteers, we could also save on installation about $25,000. So he is passing that quote along to me as well. So that would mean then
between the PTO and if we could get that workforce gathered up. Of course, they still have supervision there, and they have to have inspections and things like that, but we had somebody for the grunt work. That would leave fencing and cost of equipment to consider.
Well, this is just me asking, is the PTO going to ask for help, or are they going to, I mean, I put it on Facebook and say, hey, if you want to
I think
volunteer.
it would be a collaborative effort between the elementary and the PTO. We put that out on Facebook, or Parent Square Facebook webpage. I don't know all the parameters of it, so when he sends me the quote, I will have more information.
When would they be looking to do that? I'm not fond of cold weather, but I wouldn't mind volunteering to help a little bit. Not fond of cold weather.
Well, first I have to get approval,
Okay,
so.
that's my point. Sorry. I'm putting the cart
What
in
I'm
the horse.
asking for now is that we consider that in the month or next month or two.
Do it.
Consider that.
So we had, let me interject, we had, still on the other enhancement projects we have going on, we still have to figure out the fencing for the stadium entrance. Some of you may recall the original drawings and such, they had a little bit more of an elaborate entrance to the stadium that was part of the drawings and such, and we weren't excited, the Women's and Grounds Committee wasn't really excited about it. So we pulled that from the scope of the project, retaining that, yes, we're going to have some sort of fencing for the actual entrance into it, because we didn't go with the complete layout of the architects. Quite frankly, we weren't sure what we wanted until it was completed, so it's been pulled, so we got some vendors out here to look at it, that, and then the fencing around the actual, the outdoor fitness area, which got put in here, so you guys can take a look at it. So while they were out here, I just asked MCP, because I knew that we were looking at this and what the fencing, so we got some additional quotes and estimates on what the fencing would be to go around, what this would be for the new playground, going ahead and replacing the Bright Futures to match it up, and then another one if you want to tie it in to the elementary. And so you're going to see a lot of different proposals for fencing, and bills come through for fencing, and it's all staggered out. I'll tell you now, so as they come through, you can ask that it could be one of 3 different ventures. Number one is tort, okay? So out at the outdoor fitness area, that's in a parking lot. So you have to, for tort liability, you have to have fencing. The actual stadium entrance, it's not necessarily a safety issue along that one.
Security, I mean, is that
Yeah,
what it is?
so I gotta get more clarification, but if you wanted to replace the chain link that's going down to where the maintenance building is, that's cosmetic, that's not going to be a tort issue.
Really?
Yeah, because there is,
It's already there.
yeah, it's already there, you're replacing it, so.
Replacement, we're not.
Yeah, so if you're going over to the new playground again, equipment, you gotta keep the kids from the parking lot, so that's tort, that's easy. But if you go around to the actual old playground and you replace that one, that's a replacement. So that'll be something to pay attention to as those come through, and then it'll probably be phased in theoretically. This one's getting done now. I mean, they gotta get the Mount Harris mobilized as quick as possible to get the stadium entrance. But that's the fence design that we're kind of chosen to be applied.
And then the playground equipment itself would be count 61 style? Or-
Yes, yes.
Has that been fully decided yet?
Which option?
Yeah. Okay, that's why, because I was
I've asked
gonna
for
say.
feedback and I've gotten, they look great.
Well, that's what I was gonna say, because the other thing, while I was there, I just happened to see, while I was looking at different surfaces, a couple companies that were producing playground equipment, and as the kid in me, I thought they looked very, very neat. I really did. I mean, my wife even thought they were pretty cool. I actually wish I looked at my daughter to get her input. There was a couple kids that were around there, and they were looking at some of the different seating arrangements they had. So it was kind of neat to see what their opinions were. So, but yeah, I'll get that to you also.
So anticipate seeing this, if it all comes together, on the action item in January. If there's any other further questions or anything, it's not that big a deal to push it to February, but in the next couple of months, we'd like to get this solidified to get all the ball rolling, to have this done in time for next school year.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much, Ms. Reed.
You bet.
Policy committee, you guys haven't met since the last,
We're about to have a biggie.
oh boy.
Like,
There you go.
just came through today.
Transportation, we have not met Travis since last meeting. I think Mr. Valls has a meeting for us, I think January, no, December.
Next week.
Yeah,
January, this week, whatever.
Well, it's my cell phone, that's all I gotta worry about. Positive committee, positive communication committee.
Met and discussed cyberbullying assembly and community night, and put some dates out for consideration, and they've got it all into the planning. It looks good.
Wonderful. Code of conduct, doesn't look like you guys have met either. Oh, this is the one I was looking forward to. Student board member report.
So all of the classes have either just got done with their fundraisers to help raise the class money, or are in the middle of doing that. From what I hear, it's going pretty good. They're doing okay. They're not doing great. They're not doing absolutely horrible. Just right in the middle ground. We had our fundraiser we've been planning for a while today to recognize winter sports. And it was like, I think they said it was lighted up theme, but like there were glow sticks, we shut the lights off.
Nice.
There was a basketball game that was staff and seniors, which went really well.
For the seniors?
Staff.
Oh,
Staff,
oh,
yeah.
oh.
Yeah, but everybody's doing pretty well, so.
Good. Thank you very much.
Well, I had a question. Were you ever student at home?
No, I wasn't.
Will that be a problem at home? Will there be pressure put on by your brother? No.
Sibling rivalry, or lack thereof, maybe. Insurance committee, Mrs. Brawley and Mr. Slack.
We haven't met.
Have not met, okay.
Forms are being filled out right now as we speak. Once those get, yep, cross our fingers, those turn around, and then, I mean, it'll all be happening here within the next month and a half. March 1st,
Wonderful. Item number 3, board sessions attended at the convention. We are actually going to postpone that presentation until next month, with a third of the board members being not here today. We thought it would be a little more polite to not put him on center of attention next month, so we'll wait to get he can handle it. But
It was fun.
I thought it'd be nice to. The CETCO hiring survey, we annually have to submit a survey based on what we anticipate our needs to be for the fiscal year 21. This is traditionally done in December, but we will act upon it in January. This time we do not anticipate any changes to our services that they are providing for us.
and I'll just, if I can amend that, just today I got an email that there may be potentially for an additional student facilitator in one of our programs that we house here for CETCO. Traditionally, we've been adding social worker services in the previous 2 years, and I really feel like we're in a good spot right now with the staffing that we have with the addition of the part-time counselors for junior high, and then the previously 4/5 social worker be full-time here. I think that we should be good on that front for the coming year.
Closed session for purpose of student discipline, collective bargaining matters, and personnel consultation with legal counsel. I need a motion and a second to enter into closed session for those purposes.